Hello. Welcome to the Daily Political Tarot and Astrology here on the Black and Orange channel. Thank you so much for being here. I am here 365 days of the year, sometimes more than once. Becca from House of Love, thank you so much. In the chat. Thank you so much for coming on with me last night. I always love reading with you, just hanging out with you. But thank you for coming on last night. But I've got the news kind of off to the side. I can't really hear it, but I can kind of see if there are any headlines that jump up. And yeah, we've got all kinds of things to go through today. I'm breaking up. Hang on. Okay. Oh, thank you so much. Sound is okay. Did I? Hang on. Audio. Okay. Hopefully it'll work now. Thank you. Thank you for telling me about the sound. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Becca from House of Lenormand, for coming on last night. And I'm here every day. I haven't seen my email yet, but I know that Cannon. Where's my email? I know that Cannon was chosen for the arraignment. Just having a do. Concerned about 45. Yes, Cannon has been assigned. I'm also reading from Joyce Vance, has a Twitter thread about this that outlines how she can be forced to recuse herself by the appellate court who overturned her rulings previously. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know about that. That's kind of what I'm thinking at the moment, is that putting my faith in Jack Smith, because I don't believe for a minute that Jack Smith, after everything he's been through, everything he's done in his career, that he's just suddenly going to show up and be like, oh, well, with a judge who was just, she wasn't just, her rulings weren't just knocked down by the appellate court. The rulings were scathing, absolutely scathing. So anyway, I want to start with that today. And all the questions are in the description box if you're watching on replay. Hello. And thank you, everybody. Do hit the like or subscribe if you come around and you like what you're seeing. It's free. Like, subscribe, free. Turn on notifications. On Tuesday, it is at 3 p.m. Eastern that Trump has to turn himself over in Miami for arraignment. Oh, I'm so happy. Which would be 2 o'clock Chicago time, where I am. It actually says Chicago right there. And I'm absolutely going to be here. Absolutely. No question. And anytime there's any other breaking news about this heinous human being who is a disgrace and who did so much damage being held accountable, I'll be on. I have live streams set up ready to go. I just have to go in, change the current date and the time, and hit go. Seriously. So yes, Walt Nada is Robin D. It says he's been indicted. Do we have verification on that? Oh, Lucky Girl says Midas Touch did a video about Trump's latest indictments and answers many other questions. Hint, Judge Aileen Cannon will not be presiding over it. Oh, Stephanie says he has been. I had heard that it was likely, but okay. Then that's good. Lucky Girl, did they explain? Yeah, it was just some Midas touch, says Sharon Rice. All right, good, because I do have faith in Jack Smith. I think he's not just gonna. Oh well, no, he's not an oh well kind of guy. He's a triathlete who has gone after the worst of the worst in The Hague. So yeah, okay. Okay, hang on a second here. Just need to Wipe my nose for a second. All right. Well, it's good that Cannon won't be there, but I still want to read on. Lucky Girl says it's not her district the case will be heard in. Okay, I've heard other things on MSNBC all morning, but thank you, Glenn. I just want to have just 3 cards on starting at 5:30. I just want to have a quick look at 5:30. Because even if she's in charge of the arraignment, what's the likelihood he's going to get high bail? So, Judith Juliet said Trump's lawyers, Trusty and Rowley, resigned. Are there going to be any delays? Well, the good news is they resign now. So I'm getting distracted. There's so much that the chat is going so quickly. They resign now, so they can just resign. Otherwise, if they were there on Tuesday, they were in front of they got involved in this case in court, they'd have to go in front of the judge to let go, and it would be a much more complicated thing. So this helps. It's autumn in the mornings, yeah. Hello, Allison. All right, Star. Yeah, we've seen you before, lady. You had your absolutely deeply embarrassing 15 minutes in the sun. Temperance, 8 of Wands, Strength. Yeah, this is Temperance. This is her games and the things she was playing before. This doesn't feel like her. But she's played games before. You don't need me to tell you that. Mel Broussard says Florida Federal Court, Southern District. Court for the Southern District is held in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Fort Pierce, Key West, and West Palm Beach. Oh, Just Joanne said, breaking news, Justice Department to deliver a statement at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. I might have to come back on. That's 2 p.m. Central. Oh, Phyllis Rowan, thank you. Thank you. Makes a big difference. Lisa says, per the chat, Cannon hasn't been assigned to the case. Arraignment will be addressed before the magistrate, Bruce Reinhardt. No trial judge appointed as yet. Okay, but I hope so. I don't want this woman anywhere near it. It's just that they put her name, her initials, her name and his name on the paperwork, and for what it's worth, regular media so far isn't saying anything about she can't or she won't, or but like I said, I'm putting my faith in Jack Smith. I don't think we need to. I think there's a lot of information that's just coming out in a fire hose right now. So just remember to take a breath, no matter what happens, because Joe Biden is our president. President Joseph Biden is our president. We're going to be okay. All right. Now, let's see if we can get some justice going for Trump. Larry Murray says, you missed my post. My post indictment may be open later today per NPR. Oh, I would expect that everybody who possibly can is in a courtroom going, unseal it, please unseal it. The news people, please unseal it. All right. All right, yeah. Jack Smith is not putting up with anything. Ding. No. He is a, think about triathletes. They're, shall we say, dogged. Shall we say, when the going gets tough, they keep going. When they're in pain, when it's the darkest night of the soul, they keep going. So, anyway, that's where I'm putting my faith right now. And according to the cards, that's where it belongs. So we shall see. Salty Ship says Cannon is the preliminary judge. She may only be the judge for this portion of the case. I hope that they to go in today or on Monday and say to whoever they need to and say, excuse us, we have both of these rulings by the appellate courts that are scathing against this judge who was appointed by the defendant. We need to go somewhere else. There are 12 judges in the district, is what I heard this morning. If Glenn Bird is saying Cannon is not in that district, well, I think we can agree that a lot of different people are saying a lot of different things right now. That's because I've literally heard different things from all over. And all I'm going to do is do some readings on some cards. Okay, moving on. Trump has hired a new lawyer. Even this morning, Trusty was going out and defending him, but no, he's fired now. Or it's possible that he didn't pay them. So that's an option as well. But he's hired one of Manafort's lawyers. And Manafort's case was bifurcated in two different places. So I guess Trump thinks that this new guy, who apparently is a good lawyer, will be better. But what's going on with Trump and his lawyers? I guess this one isn't quite as much of a bubblegum machine lawyer as the other ones he's chosen, but yeah, Becca, exactly. It's also possible he wanted them to do some illegal stuff and they got wise and they were like, nope. Yeah. Kathy Lamson says, did Untrusty quit or was he fired? I just liked saying it. Trump and Trusty. Mike Pence discussing Trump indictments. Who cares? Oh, Trump is in so much trouble. Oh my gosh. He is in insane amounts of trouble. Okay. Yay. Two of Pentacles. Sorry, Two of Wands, Death card. 10 of Cups. 10 of Pentacles. 3 of Swords. Oh, we're getting rid of Trusty and the others. This part of this was a Trump tantrum. A Trumper tantrum. Yeah. Because he's being indicted and they should have stopped that. Nothing should happen to him. Nothing at all. No, he's above it all. Now, he has a new lawyer, but he's going to find out that this new lawyer can't get him off on everything either. What this lawyer who worked for Manafort was able to do was get Manafort off on some of this stuff based on the idea of double jeopardy, state and federal. So, yeah, that's not going to happen here, dude. Oh. Who just said that? Glenn Burso, I got to go decompress. Back later. Oh, take care. Deep breaths. We're going to be okay. We are going to be okay. We really are. All right? Pence says no one is above the law. You jerk. Yeah, but if they try to kill me, my wife, my kid, if it's politically expedient, I don't like him. Okay. All right, so Maggie, who had a question? 1535. 1535. Okay. Maggie, who said, all things considered, will Trump stay healthy enough to stand for all of his trials? Yes, Isabel Moss, Pence is such an idiot. I agree, 100%. All right. Trump's health. I'm so sick of Trump. This is glorious. I am so looking forward to Chariot. Yes, this is the big parade. This is the biggest float in this giant parade of justice. It's slow moving, but it's massive. Empress. Magician. Sun. Temperance. Eight of Swords. It's fine. They when they need to, they'll give him B shots and whatnot. Yeah, the Sun, the Temperance, and his limitation, whatever form his incarceration will take, because I do think, I don't know that he'll end up in a prison, but he's toast. He is burnt toast. Slather him in margarine and blackcurrant jam. He's done. He's toast. So, but his health looks okay. Pence says the indictment should be unsealed immediately. Who cares what you think? I happen to agree with you on this instance, but that's not really agreeing with you. Pence is awful. Okay. And why is Trump in so much trouble? Why? How could he possibly be in just the worst of the worst? He always spins things, right? Attorneys are claiming any defense Trump may have had in the documents case has been neutered. It's always good to use words like that around Trump because it really makes him crazy because he is so fragile. Anyway, by the audio recording that's in Jack Smith's possession, where Trump discusses the Iran documents specifically. And my understanding is that in this document, or in this recording, he even says, I could have declassified them before I left office, but I didn't. That's what I heard this morning. So, you can't pretend you didn't know. Oh, Mike Pence. Chi Young says Mike Pence is polling at a beefy 3.8%. 7 of Wands. He's just on the defensive and on the defensive because of your own stupidity, your own crimes. You see, I did this kind of semi-historical kind of thing going on here. That's the seal of Florida, by the way, or the old one, new one, I don't know. E pluribus unum. And these were some of our previous presidents. And you know what these men did? Nothing that got them in a courtroom based on the Espionage Act. Not that hard to not. They did it. They got They got through the whole thing. Six of Swords. Page of Swords. Five of Pentacles. He does not have a good argument. This is his argument. It's all minor arcana. You just on the defensive, moving, trying to stand up, stumbling, and you're out in the cold. Proxy Roxas on MSNBC said, Jack Smith will make a statement today at 3:05 p.m. live stream. That would be 3:05 Eastern, so 2:05, and I will be here, even if I have to come back on. Yeah. So we can watch it together. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. All right. Now, when after Trump was arraigned in New York, he went back to Mar-a-Lago and had some kind of rally-ish thing in his like ballroom-ish type place. I don't remember if it was, I think it was at Mar-a-Lago, but I'm not sure. That's not important. So he came back and one of the things he was saying was, you know, and one of the possible things they want to charge me with, meaning Jack Smith's, what have you, the documents case, would be possibly punishable by death. And I remember hearing that and rolling my eyes. Nobody's going to kill you, Trump. You entitled blankety blank. No one is going to put you to death. But keep in mind, the punishment for military members under the Espionage Act is severe. It stands to reason that a former commander-in-chief, civilian, but still, he was a commander-in-chief of the military, could face heavier penalties than private citizens. The question here is just, could Trump legitimately spend the rest of his life in prison? But, Pamela says that DOJ has unsealed the document. Oh, man. Yes. All right. Am I going to have to sit down? Okay. Indictment has been released. Okay. Okay. I'll have to unmonetize this. And MSNBC.com. And we will watch this together. Indicted again. All right. Come on. Load. Ba-ba-ba-da-da-da. I need to connect this. 1 second.
Classified documents. The classified documents Trump stored in his boxes included information regarding defense and weapons capabilities of both the United States and foreign countries, United States nuclear programs, potential vulnerabilities of the United States and its allies to military attack. Wow. And plans for possible retaliation in response to a foreign attack. The unauthorized disclosure of these classified documents could put at risk the national security of the United States, foreign relations, the safety of the United States military and human sources, and the continued viability of sensitive intelligence collection methods. There are 49 pages. I'm not going to read them all, but I'm going to keep going for a moment. At 12 p.m. on January 20, 2021, Trump ceased to be president, making a point of that. And as he departed the White House, Trump caused scores of boxes, many of which contained classified documents to be transported to the Mar-a-Lago Club in Palm Beach, Florida, where he maintained his residence. This is not saying that somebody else carried the boxes out. This is saying Trump caused them. Trump was not not authorized to possess or retain those classified documents. The Mar-a-Lago Club was an active social club which between January 2021 and August 2022 hosted events for tens of thousands of members and guests. After Trump's presidency, the Mar-a-Lago Club was not an authorized location for the storage, possession, review, display, or discussion of classified documents. Nevertheless, Trump stored his boxes containing classified documents in various locations at the Mar-a-Lago Club, including a ballroom, a bathroom and a shower, an office space, his bedroom, and a storage room. On 2 occasions in 2021, Trump showed classified documents to others. In July 2021, at Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster, during an audio recording meeting with a writer, a publisher, and 2 members of his staff, he showed those documents. In August or September, at the Bedminster Club, Trump showed a representative of his political action committee who did not possess a security clearance, a classified map related to a military operation, and told the representative he should not be showing it to the representative and that the representative should not get too close. I know all of you are trying to get in here. Ari,
Yeah, there are photos of locations.
Yeah, go ahead.
There are some boxes here that are shown in the indictment, and it says here in number 25, from January through
you wanna
March
hold these?
15th
It's these.
of 1921.
I mean, you can see the voluminous nature of this, that they have the goods and the receipts. This is a indictment with about 50 pages,
Just to
49.
point
You've
out
got
what
these
this,
photos.
what this is stating, that
Yeah.
they sat out in the white gold ballroom at Mar-a-Lago, in which events and gatherings took place. And this is a picture that Ari is holding of those documents.
Yeah, and there are more and more of these throughout. We're going to go through this live. I can tell you that from looking now at what we have with the indictment is the charges of retention, conspiracy, withholding the documents, corruptly concealing the documents, and the false statements, which we've reported on. So this is, we're going to go through it, and Andrew will weigh in, but this is a pretty maximalist version of these charges. It's a very, very voluminous set of counts. You've got a bunch that are stacked, and you have a narrative in here that has names. I see lawyer 1, I see Nada, which we reported today as the co-conspirator. So when you look at this being a documents conspiracy really against the United States, you have not only the physical and visual evidence of it, but now you have a narrative, you have a storyline with testimony. Andrew, I don't know if you want to weigh in.
And Ken Delanian is out and also has now this indictment. Ken, what are you saying?
Well, Chris, a couple of things. One, the allegation that he showed classified material to people not cleared to see it and is charged with that crime. That's a huge, huge deal. We didn't have that reporting in our understanding of the charges so far today. And that's a big deal because it's one thing for, Trump's enablers and defenders will say, so what if a former president had documents that he was authorized to have when he was president and they were sitting in Mar-a-Lago and no one saw them, no foreign government, no foreign adversary. But when you show classified documents to people who weren't cleared to see them, that is a breach. People have gone to prison for a long time for doing that. It happens all the time. It's more than just taking them home and squirreling them away. So they've got 2 instances here where they say that he did that. And in one case, there's a recording or rather a transcript of the recording that we've been reporting on where he is meeting with some people who are working on a memoir for his chief of staff, Mark Meadows. And he talks about having this Iran-related classified document, knowing that it's classified and lamenting that he should have declassified it when he was the president. So that's a really important part of this indictment.
Yeah, Ken, as you've been pointing out, this is devastating, Andrew Weissman.
Yes.
So some of the points you've been looking at in the indictment.
So first, just to underscore Ken's point, dissemination was one of the key things I was looking for. It is a much more serious crime to not just have it and the risk of dissemination, but to actually disseminate. Second, in quick reading, there are a series of texts that are quoted verbatim, as well as tape recordings with employees and others documenting what was said. Third, to Ari's point, it is clear that Nauta is been charged and is part of this, is a co-conspirator.
Alleged.
Also, Andrew, to your point, Trump's statements in 2016 are actually in the indictment to show his state of mind and his knowledge of the classification rules. 4, they specifically talk about classified documents. Why is that important? That shows that Jack Smith has made a determination. This whole story about these things having been classified in my mind is something that he can prove did not happen.
Well, and one of
Because
the
it's
first
further
things
than
Katie
charges.
read, it could put at risk the national security.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
So he
they were
just says
pretty
that.
clear in the beginning that this is not just that he had the documents. He has the documents and he showed them to people. And oh, by the way, they could put us at risk. They show our vulnerabilities. They
Right.
could put our alliances at risk.
And their national defense information and classified,
So
meaning
does-
it's very bold.
Does this underscore what you were saying last night and this morning, that they must have a really solid case in which they were willing to take the risk of going to Florida with a Florida jury, a Florida judge, rather than DC?
I think that's true.
What
Although I
happens if
think
you just
the other
don't
reason to
respond
go
at all
to
or don't
Florida
play
was
ball with them?
because the venue was just so clear, and why take the risk of the litigation
Yeah.
in DC?
And we
The
talked about the
final-
co-conspirator. I also want to jump in and note on pages 25, 26, we see how many lawyers are in trouble, and this may offer clues for why some lawyers dramatically left the case today.
Yes.
There are references, not names, but references to lawyer or Trump, quote, attorney 1, 2, and 3. And then there's a storyline in here that is just really damning. I mean, I'm processing this in real time, but just reading from this, it says, after Trump attorney 1 confirmed he was finished with his search, this is where they've actually gone inside with contemporaneous documentation of what the DOJ alleges was a crime committed with the furtherance of attorneys. Trump asked, quote, according to DOJ, did you find anything? Is it bad or good? Trump and attorney 1 then discussed what to do. During that conversation, Trump made a plucking motion. Trump attorney 1, quote, he made a funny motion as though, why don't you take them with you to your hotel room if there's anything, quote,
Oh my
really
gosh.
bad in there, pluck it out. And that was the motion he made. That evening, it goes on to say, Trump attorney 1 contacted the DOJ and requested an FBI agent meet him at the Mar-a-Lago Club the next day so he could turn over responsive documents. This is the outlines of an attempt by now federal defendant Donald Trump to get other people to, you're already on record. You're already facing the subpoena process. You've already been caught lying. Now, would you, according to the DOJ, and he'll have his right to respond, would you pluck that out if it's, quote, bad, AKA criminal contraband? And just continuing this narrative,
And take to your hotel room.
take to your hotel room, which is not a skiff, to say the least. Reading from page 26 from the new indictment, quote, these statements, the DOJ says, were false because, among other reasons, Trump had directed now to the co-conspirator to move boxes before Trump attorney 1's review so that many boxes were not searched. And many documents responsive to the subpoena, this was from May, quote, could not be found and in fact were not found by Trump attorney 1. Then it goes on to Trump attorney 3, quote, executing a false certification. I mean, Andrew, I'd love for you to walk through with us, first of all, how unusual this level of detail is from inside what looks like scheming around and with lawyers.
This is the piercing of the attorney general.
Right.
Yes.
Client privilege.
How
Absolutely.
unusual is this, and is this strong evidence against Trump?
Yeah, so Trump attorney 1 is clearly Corcoran. Trump attorney 3 is Bob, because they talk about Bob as the one who actually signed the
Christina Bob.
certification. Exactly. And Corcoran is there. The fact that it's there's some real quotes there, to me, resonates with the reporting that Corcoran tape recorded these huge notes, because
There are
There's-
quotes throughout this. There's a lot of tape recordings, it seems, of Donald Trump's conversations.
exactly. So we've always
Do you think
talked
it was
about
post facto recording
Yes.
of his notes?
Remember the
or
reporting-
was he wired?
Well, I think it wasn't wired. I mean, I think it would be for a lawyer to do that. with
Hugely
a-
inappropriate.
Yes, that would not. But the reporting was that he, after the fact, being concerned about memorializing what the conversations were with his client on a car ride, dictated very extensive notes.
No wonder with the
This-
plucking motion and take them to your hotel room.
Absolutely. I mean, that is.
What's so
that is like,
remarkable
how do you
about this is
represent
that Donald Trump has been able to escape criminal liability or civil liability, a lot of legal liability over his time, over his years, because he doesn't text message. He doesn't put things on paper. He kind of winks and nods. And what you're seeing here is recordings of him. This is the first time we've seen him, I believe, be so explicit about what prosecutors allege is him breaking a lot of crimes, breaking a lot of laws.
I always thought for the January 6th case and for this case that you could have a whole slew of lawyers testifying, whether they are White House counsel, and now we see his personal counsel. Because you know what? You cannot use your lawyers to commit a crime.
So I guess the really big deal here is that the prosecutors, Jack Smith was able to pierce attorney-client privilege. If not for his ability to do that, we wouldn't have a lot of what's in this indictment.
Well, certainly, I think that certainly the stuff that Ari just read, absolutely, that clearly comes from being able to get the inside story.
Is that going to be a vulnerability?
No. And the reason is, one, this wasn't something that the Department of Justice just unilaterally said, oh, I'd like to find out what lawyers think and I'm going to put them in the grand jury. They had to have approval, and they got approval from the chief judge of the DC court. And that really insulates this from any challenge.
And that was all after the search, but it also, this indictment also gives you so much to show that the probable cause that they got post subpoena to even have the search. This justifies the search, at least in any court of law. Frank Figluzzi's been wanting to get in with a point. Frank?
Yeah, a couple of things. So one that jumps out at me from the national security perspective is we're learning now that these documents retained at Mar-a-Lago were from throughout the U.S. intelligence community, and specifically on page 8, those agencies are cited. And I have to tell you, whenever information comes from some of these agencies, particularly the National Security Agency, the National Reconnaissance Office, the National Geospatial Agency, they are almost automatically
the National Geospatial Agency.
And to hear that some of this was sitting on a stage in a ballroom at Mar-a-Lago is really cringing for me. And
at this point, I'm waiting for National Geographic to come at him for something. I mean,
at FBI headquarters, or if you're out at lunch,
there's nothing
you
left.
use a code name for these agencies so that we know what we're talking about and where something came from, but that people sitting next to us would not know what we're talking about. Yet this is the kind of classified information that he kept openly at Mar-a-Lago.
And Joyce Vance, why don't you weigh in here as well?
Well, while y'all have been diligently working through the specifics of the indictment and talking about the details and the evidence, I'm the person who skipped ahead to read the ending. And something stunning is the scope and breadth of this indictment. There are not 7 counts in this indictment as were reported last night, but there are 38 charges that are brought against the president and his, I suppose now, former valet. Most striking as you begin to read through the individual counts is the fact, the repetition over and over of the fact that Donald Trump lied in order to hide his crimes. It really is, at the end of the day in this indictment, the cover-up that got the former president in trouble.
So does Walt Nauta flip? I mean, it's a 38-count indictment. It has a whole lot of detail. Nauta's name is throughout it. Is this the kind of document where Nauta's lawyers, if they're not attached to Donald Trump, looks at him and says, Andrew, you got to make a deal here?
Well, presumably that conversation has been had. That's also the reason for Donald Trump issuing the first thing you get out of Donald Trump before he starts fundraising is to praise Walt Nauta, because he knows. He's been through this. This is something that he's very familiar with, which is, keep your potential enemies close. And so he's been praising him. I would think at this point, yes, you would always continue to have that conversation, but there's no question that is something that has had already.
But he's family, guys. I mean,
this material
would be amazing.
This
Alexis
new material
says 30
documents
charges,
that the DOJ says Nauta has
410
already
years on
criminally
the
lied for
max
Donald
end.
Trump. So he's already gone down that road. That's one of the charges, and there's transcript to that effect. So whether he now faces more heat that changes his mind, we've seen before, but that's how far in he is. The person you see on your screen, not well known, but loyal military aide and personal aide to Donald Trump in the post-presidency. I want to read some more from this because we have so much new material. With regard to Katie's point that Donald Trump has long avoided texts and emails, but he hasn't stopped everyone else from using them on his behalf. And so here you have January 13th, 2022, the DOJ here reading from page 19 says Nauta texted Trump employee 2 about Trump personally, quote, tracking boxes, stating, quote, he's tracking the boxes, more to follow today on whether he wants to go through more today or tomorrow. The employee replies, thank you. Nauta then writes to another anonymous, employee, listed standard fashion, Trump employee 2 in the indictment. One thing he asked was for new covers for the boxes. Can we get new box covers before giving them out on Monday? And the employee replies, yes, I will get that. Why does this all matter? Well, this is contemporaneous. This is real. The DOJ finds this credible, that they really were communicating and they really were scheming.
Why would they want
because then it notes Nada gathered 15 boxes from Trump's residence, loaded them in Nada's car, and took them to a commercial truck for delivery to Nara, which is
Pay no
trying to
attention
get some of these
to
back
what's
to
in the
fest.
box
Yeah.
labeled
Then, when interviewed by the
odds and
FBI
ends
regarding the
or
movement of
ketchup
boxes,
packets
Nada made
or
statements as set forth in one of the counts. Count
Melania's
38,
bronzer.
including, quote,
Pay no
falsely stating he
attention to
wasn't
those
aware of
boxes.
Trump's boxes being brought to the residence, falsely stating he didn't know how the boxes that he and the employee brought from the residence to the commercial truck.
Nada is an employee, Susie.
And Andrew, I'm going to go to you on this. And then when asked whether he knew where Trump's boxes had been stored before they were in the residence and whether they'd been in a secure location, as required under law, by the way, Nada, quote, falsely responded, I wish I could tell you, I don't know. I honestly just don't know, end quote. Andrew, what is the DOJ doing with that?
So to me, this is just such a strong obstruction series of charges, and you see it in the back half of the indictment. One thing that's very clever is look at the time period that's charged. It's from the date of the grand jury subpoena that was served until the date of the search. In other words, they're not dealing with the archives and what happened with all of that. That's going to be useful, but this is, in terms of the obstruction, it's from the moment you get a grand jury subpoena that says turn over all documents that bear classification.
So had he
markings.
done it then, this case would have never been brought.
Or at least these obstruction piece.
And this is what
exactly.
distinguishes him from any charge that it's the same as Biden or Pence, as far as we know about Biden.
Absolutely. As far as we know, there is just no sign whatsoever that either Pence or Biden obstructed justice. And this is chapter and verse in real detail. And it's going to be from his lawyers.
A big part of the detail being that there seemed to be stuff everywhere. You read it, a ballroom, a bathroom, a shower, and then going back to Nada on page 13 on December 7th.
You've heard of laundering
he found
money?
several of Trump's boxes
Showering
fallen and their
tub-
contents
secret
spilled on the
documents.
floor of the storage
Shower
room.
to shower each day. Helps keep indictments at bay.
And sends them to another Trump employee, including visible markings of classified information. Frank Figliuzzi, it's picking up on what you were talking about, which is the idea of national security. You have classified documents. The boxes are spilled all over the place. They have a photo of it, of everything spilled.
Is that the photo? That
and-
looks like the photo they put out early on in this case.
It could be. It says one of the photos, not of Texas, to Trump employee 2 is depicted below with the visible classified information.
Which the Trump people claim was a stage photo by them spreading
is that the
those.
photo we saw in color during the fall?
We have to
the
check
initial
that out.
photo?
But if that
We'll try to
indicates
connect it,
that it
'cause this
came
photo is
from
not a
what
great
they were
quality.
doing, not what the searchers were doing.
Yeah, so Frank, as you look at this, the national security implications, there just seem to be these papers marked classified everywhere.
Yeah, and they go out of their way here in the indictment to talk about the numbers of people that traipse through Mar-a-Lago, that there are movie premieres and weddings and et cetera, to set the stage, although we now have boxes being alleged to have been on a stage, that way too many people could have had access to this. But there's something else that jumps out at me here, which is a direct reference to a Trump family member, unnamed, on page 23. It's clear that they have all kinds of texts, and somebody's cooperating, likely to recover these texts, because it's increasingly difficult to restore text through subpoena and search warrant here of providers. So here's an unnamed Trump family member who has apparently guilty knowledge and is texting directly with Nada, saying, hey, I understand you're moving boxes. POTUS, you moved them into POTUS room, and I understand you may be putting them on the plane. Now, the previous paragraphs refer to a trip to Bedminster. So we have a Trump family member acknowledging, hey, I know you're moving the boxes, and now I think you want to put them on a plane to Bedminster. I don't know if we're going to have room, he says, on the plane. So there's an unnamed Trump family member who seems to have guilty knowledge that Yeah, we're obstructing justice.
Also, it's a woman.
Ma'am.
He says, "Good afternoon, ma'am." So
Right.
it's an unknown Trump family member who's a woman. That does narrow it down. I want to just add a couple things. One of them is that
No, she didn't.
At the end, there's basically a sheet that the
Man, you better flip something. You better shuffle and flip something.
they'll need. This is a court division for West Palm Beach. They
Because
estimate
maybe
21
we changed our last name because we
for the
about to be disowned.
They also list maximum terms of imprisonment for the
I'm gonna
counts,
sip my
counts
tea.
1 to 31. Max term of imprisonment 10 years. Mandatory minimum term of imprisonment is 3 years. Not applicable. Maximum supervised release is 3 years. Fine 250,000. There's another one where it says 20 years. This is for count 32. This is the conspiracy to obstruct justice. Maximum term imprisonment again 20 years. The maximum supervised release is 3 years. For count 33, withholding a document or record, maximum term 20 years. Count 34, maximum term 20 years. This is corruptly concealing a document. Count 35, concealing a document in a federal investigation,
Phyllis,
20
these
years.
people are killing me
Count 36, max
loudly,
term
not
5
softly.
years. This is a
And I'm
scheme
here
to
for it.
conceal.
So I'm
37,
good.
false statements and representations, 5 years.
Sledgehammer.
Andrew
Heavy,
Weissman,
heavy
that is a sledgehammer. What's the likelihood that he'd be facing that sort of jail time?
So you have to list what the statutory maximum is, but that's not what governs what a sentence would be.
What the
And what you
curve
look
look
to
like
for a
is that
sentence
they
is you look to prior
did
DOJ cases, you
indict
look for what
Ivanka.
judges have done. But
should
just
Your-
take
Your
last
volume's very
week,
low on your
somebody who had pled
mic.
guilty, didn't go to trial, got an advantage by pleading, was sentenced to 3 years in jail. But Andrew, one thing you might be interested in is that of 21 of the
What I'm getting here
counts
is
under
if
willful
they
retention
did
of
charge
national
Ivanka,
defense
she
information,
would,
21
I
of
think she
those
would go to
charges
Israel.
Of the 31 are listed as involving
Has she
top
flipped?
secret information. One of
Because
them
they
is
have
the
testimony from a female family member.
White House intelligence briefing related to foreign countries, including military activities and planning. Of
I mean,
foreign
it's her,
countries.
it's Laura,
Clearly are
it's
listing
Tiffany,
incredibly,
it's Melania,
sensitive information.
or it's Ivana
Sure,
before she
the
died.
broadcast
So
decided
pick
what
one.
to include.
Or it's the mother-in-law.
This is sort of the tip of the iceberg.
Andrew, to your very point, Ken Delaney, you've got some information about
Ivanka, it
past
just
Washington Post reporting
death
about
card,
nuclear secrets.
looking
Yeah, that's right. Just to build on what
overseas
Andrew was saying,
Mhm.
right there in paragraph 3,
to make it
remember that the Washington
disappear
Post had reported
legally.
that some of the
Mhm.
documents involved nuclear programs, and I remember Donald Trump and his allies denying that. Well, it says right here
Okay, let me
that
turn this back up.
classified documents that Trump stored in his boxes included information regarding defense and weapons capabilities of both the United States and foreign countries, United States nuclear programs, and potential vulnerabilities of the U.S. and its allies in military attack. It goes on to say that not only was the national defense of the United States compromised and put at risk here, but the safety of the United States military, human sources, and the continued viability of sensitive intelligence collection methods. So these are the crown jewels. Look, I've been covering the intelligence community for more than a decade. I've seen a lot of these cases of unauthorized disclosure of classified information. This is one of the most detailed and devastating indictments I've ever seen, coupling an
Kimberly is
unauthorized
family
disclosure
adjacent.
case
She's not
with an
family, so I
obstruction
don't
case
think
and a
it's
cover-up case.
Kimberly.
It's
I mean,
absolutely
that's-
remarkable. And they also had to juggle, right, with those very agencies, the CIA
Sorry.
and the NSA.
No, no.
What exactly they were
I think
gonna say in this
I should probably
indictment.
leave
There's
it
been
where
a
it
very
is. Can you
delicate
guys
dance
hear
going on
them
behind the
and
scenes.
us now?
You don't see too many explicit mentions of particular documents in here. And I throw it back to our legal
Did
experts to
Ivanka
ask,
flip?
how's
She has
that gonna
better
play
legal
out at the trial here?
representation.
Will the jury get to see some of these documents? Will Donald Trump
Well-
try to introduce documents that will then, threaten the national security of the United States?
Let me just extend your question, because the other part of that paragraph 3 is the unauthorized disclosure of these classified documents could put at risk the national security.
Azalea
United
Melania
States,
can't
our
be
relations, the
made
safety
to
of U.S.
testify
military and
against
human
her husband.
resources,
Can
and the
she?
viability of
Sure.
sensitive intelligence
She can't be
collection
forced,
methods. Andrew?
but she can
So,
volunteer.
and in count 3,
I don't-
one of the things that's
I
noted in
don't
a
think-
top secret
no.
document that it includes handwritten annotation in black marker.
Who uses a black marker?
Yes, exactly. This is what we're all sitting here today. I hate to say this, but we're all going to become experts in SIPA, which is the Classified Information Protection Act.
Which was, Katie, your first question. No.
Yes, because
We had a long conversation about it yesterday on my show.
Exactly. So this is exactly what it deals with, is how to get this information, because you do have to have public information that goes to a jury, and the public has to see it, and the defendant has a right to see it, and defense counsel. But it's a way of dealing with that without revealing things that are highly sensitive.
I mean, two points on that, because we're going to see how they're bringing this case. On page 27, on this very point, you have the most just direct table, and although viewers won't be able to read the words, that's not really my point. It's just, you basically have a two-line table here. Trump's office, which was the object of the conspiracy. You can think of that as where they were hiding the drugs. That was where they weren't initially allowed to search.
The Mar-a-Lago office.
Yeah, the Trump Mar-a-Lago office. And oops, 27 documents there, which are then broken out across top secret, secret, and confidential. The storage room, which we've heard so much about, a larger tranche, 75 documents broken out over 10 top secret, 36 secret, 28 confidential. And so in this, Andrew, what you have is also the breakdown of what looks to me like Donald Trump's worst nightmare, in that they're inside the text, they're inside the legal team. He was doing things that at this late stage in his long running battles with regulators and investigators, he thought he was getting away with it, and he wasn't. And I just want to read
We are here and mess around and find out. That's where
they
we're at.
talk about basically what the purpose was here, and they talk about Trump Attorney 1. Now, Andrew, you said you're pretty sure from the narrative that that's Corcoran, who we know is making these tapes, right? Of course, I just want to point out, according to the DOJ, they're not naming him by name, but they say, quote, Trump attempted to persuade Trump Attorney 1 to hide documents from a federal grand jury. Then the conspiracy. 2, Trump and Nauta misled Trump Attorney 1 by moving boxes that contained the classification markings so that Trump Attorney 1 wouldn't find the documents and produce them to a federal grand jury. I'd love, Andrew, for you to walk us through that, because it seems devastating to me. That brings us back to here. Again, that's the allegation, and they were hiding them. They were saying the stuff, the drugs, the contraband in this room, we're going to hide it first from our own lawyers and then from the feds. That's pretty bad.
So obstruction is kind of a big thing, obviously, here, and you just really gone through it well. But I want to get back to SIPA, at risk of being confusing with all the legal jargon. But if you can't show a jury the content, the actual content of these documents, because they're nuclear secrets, if you can't show them the degree to which they are sensitive, they are serious, they put us at risk, you are asking a jury to trust prosecutors.
So the law does not allow that. It's not like the jury is told, just trust them. But here's an argument that would come up in connection with obstruction. The subpoena called for documents that bore classification markings. It doesn't matter what's in it, the substance of it. If the classification markings are there, you're going to be like, that's all that the jury needs to know, because that goes to.
But Andrew, to her point, to Katie's point, because we deal with these terms all the time. I cover intelligence. No.
What if the woman is gargoyle?
Top secret. That means you can't even share it with your closest allies. No
They
foreign
said
news.
family, and
That is
she's family
extraordinary.
adjacent,
At
but
the
I don't
same
think.
point, Andrew, if you're telling a jury that may not,
understand.
that.
Yeah.
And a jury that might be more
big a
sympathetic
deal
to
this
Donald
is.
Trump than a jury in D.C. would
Or
be.
at the very least, feel the weight of a former president of the United
Yeah,
States
exactly.
being on trial.
Do they need to see the breadth of the breach in order to really fully understand that what they're doing to a former president, what they're considering for a former president, would meet the threshold? I know we say everybody's equal under the law, but I think naturally people, when they're sitting there, will think, wow, this is a former president.
Yeah, so those are great questions, and that is a tension that the prosecution will have. They can obviously decide that there's information that can be declassified. This is all a question of what was the state at the time that this crime happened, alleged crime happened. So they could obviously decide just to declassify certain information and make a triage. that would solve some of this problem. There may be other things, though, where they're like, you know what, we just can't declassify this. I would assume, by the way, a lot of that discussion has happened already. In order for this to be listed, there are conversations that happen.
As you know, there have been some espionage cases that never get to court because they decide it's too dangerous to reveal the evidence.
Absolutely. That is so the second thing they can do is make the kind of arguments I'm making, which is that the content isn't relevant to obstruction, because the obstruction is just sort of what's on the face of it. It is true that takes some of the guts, the sort of what you're saying is the emotional impact of sort of what happened here. But if you're trying to decide, national security versus a conviction, you're going to be weighing different things.
So that's just, a closing argument.
But that's just, that weighing, I am confident what we're seeing here, a lot of that weighing has happened already. Having been in these meetings, there are discussions about which document can we use. And you will have the CIA, the NSA, the FBI saying you cannot use that document. And others saying, you know what, this document, yes, if necessary, we're willing to declassify it for the purposes of this. So the fact that, as Ari pointed out, there are more documents that were found than are actually charged is an example of that kind of triage that's going on, where they're trying to basically say, we have a responsibility to the
Good point,
national
Robin.
security,
Some of this was already shown to a grand jury.
To present a case to the jury.
Let's go now to Robert Ray, who was with us a little while ago, a former member of Donald Trump's legal team during his first impeachment. Robert, great to have you back. I know you were saving a lot of your judgment until you read the evidence. You now have had unfettered access to the indictment without a camera in your face, so I assume you've read most of it. What do you think?
Yeah, I've read it. I mean, obviously, very quickly. I haven't studied it. I think that you are raising the right questions about, first of all, the obstruction part of this thing is important because it's basically the subpoena compliance version of musical chairs and moving documents around in order to prevent what is alleged here, to prevent the lawyers from actually knowing what documents have been retained at Mar-a-Lago. And then as far as the impact of this case, I mean, I raised earlier with you and with others the question about whether or not any harm came to the United States. And that's going to raise the very difficult question that Andrew just dissected about what evidence is actually going to be presented in court, what things are going to be declassified in order, I think, to get to the heart of that question. And that's something I cannot tell yet from the indictment.
I want to read a little bit more. This is paragraph 27. It's on page 11. And this is also employees talking amongst each other. And I'll read you the buildup. On April 5th, 2021, an employee of the office of Donald Trump texted another employee of that office, employee number 2, to ask whether Trump's boxes could be moved out of the business center to make room for staff to use it as an office. Trump employee 2 replied, "Whoa, okay." So POTUS specifically asked Walt for those boxes to be in the business center because they are his, and they put this in quote, papers. Later that day, Trump employee 1 and Trump employee 2 exchanged the following text messages. Trump employee 2, "We can definitely make it work if we move his papers into the lake room, ? Trump employee 1, "There is still a little room in the shower where his other stuff is. Is it only his papers he cares about? There's some other stuff in there that are not papers. Could that go to storage, or does he want everything in there on property?" Trump employee number 2 responds, "Yes, anything that's not the Beautiful Mind paper boxes," not sure what that is, "can definitely go to storage. Want to take a look at the space and start moving tomorrow morning." So Robert, what this has and what we've been discussing is real-time evidence of Donald Trump's directives, either in audio recordings or in real-time conversations that employees were having about Donald Trump asking them to do X, Y, or Z.
And again, that will, await what the trial evidence looks like to see whether or not the government is able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that those directions and instructions and the information he was receiving is something that you can assign intentionality to. Again, I've read it. I see what is alleged, but ultimately it's going to be about testimony that would be presented at a trial when that trial happens.
If you were defending him at trial, what would you be saying?
Well, there's all sorts of reasons why things in documents would be moved around, not necessarily all of which are reflective of criminal intent. So, again, it depends on what the testimony is. I mean, it's nice to read it in an indictment and understand that this is the prosecution's document.
Yeah.
Okay, this is not what the witnesses are actually going to testify to at trial. And those witnesses will be subject to, as any witness would be at a criminal trial, subject to cross-examination. So, those are all significant things that remain to be seen. An indictment, again, is an accusation. This is what we have right now, an accusation.
Well, except that the very next paragraph says that after those text messages were exchanged between employee number 1 and number 2, in April of 2021, some of Trump's boxes were moved from the business center to a bathroom and the shower in the Mar-a-Lago Club's lake room, as depicted in the photograph below. So that's a photograph. And then in May 2021, the next month, Trump directed that a storage room on the ground floor of the Mar-a-Lago Club, the storage room, be cleaned out so that it could be used to store his boxes. The hallway leading to the storage room could be reached from multiple outside entrances, including one accessible from the Mar-a-Lago Club pool patio through a doorway that was often kept open. The storage room was near the liquor supply closet, the linen room, the lock shop, and various other rooms. So that, R.A. Melber, indicates accessibility to top secret, no foreign use documents by the general public, as represented by the high-paying club members at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, and there's
the employees.
And multiple points where it is both unlawful retention, unlawful disclosure, and awareness in real time as a citizen, as the former president. Another one that we haven't read out on air yet that backs up that same problem for the defendant here, for Donald Trump, Andrea, is where we see Trump showed a representative a, quote, classified map of a country, and then told this citizen he should not be showing the map to him. Don't get too close. The representative did not have a security clearance or any need to know classified information about what is described here as a military operation. And so.
Sorry, hang on, I don't know what happened. And I'm downloading the PDF right now.
What Trump used to call a rat or a mole, what prosecutors call.
Come on.
Yes, Jana, it's 3 p.m. Eastern, so it'll be about 35 minutes for us.
This indictment, you as well have. I also want to bring up another recollection that I have, something I covered, which was in the opening weeks of his presidency, or months of his presidency, when there was a nuclear alert involving North Korea. He was at Mar-a-Lago. He then convened a national security meeting, a rump meeting of the national security meeting on the patio, with documents showing what they had just received from the National Security Council about this missile that had been fired and the response that was being discussed, while patrons were also dining at adjacent tables.
You know, Andrea, as we look through this indictment in great detail, it becomes even more apparent how unusual everything about what we're dealing with is. I think it's important that people understand that Donald Trump is not someone who earned his security clearance in the same ways that most federal employees earn their security clearance. He got a security clearance essentially because he's the president, or the former president, whereas other people who actually have to go through the security clearances necessary in order to get access to this type of information have a deeper appreciation for it. His entire administration was littered with folks who had these sorts of issues. If you recall, Andrea, Jared Kushner at one point wasn't able to have access to certain documents because he himself could not pass a security clearance. Where I'm going with this is a pattern that we saw throughout his entire administration of being entirely cavalier with our nation's most important and precious secrets. And as we go through this indictment, it shows you just how deep and problematic this was to a criminal level, at a criminal level of criminal liability. In addition to the fact that not only was he cavalier with our secrets, he was willing to engage other people with respect to access that they should not have had with respect to the same documents in and of itself. So this is truly mind-blowing. It's an indictment of incredible detail. I'm still going through it, but as I'm going through it, I'm thinking about the convergence of so many different and unique elements that we have not seen all in one place.
So can I interrupt you for a second, because we have color photos. So instead of having to hold up these grainy black and white things, we talked about, Charles, there being lots of boxes on the stage, and there you see those boxes. And if you go through the document they talk about, we don't know if they're these ones, but documents concerning nuclear weaponry, timeline.
Sorry, I'm just opening it in a new tab because apparently it's starting to freeze up in that one. We'll get it sorted out. This is crazy.
Very much so.
In that very room. Charles, just look at that and the storage room as well, as Chris was just pointing out.
It's unbelievable and shocking in a number of respects, both to you, Andrea, and Chris. If you think about it, I had said for a number of times that the actual contents of the documents did not matter when you were simply talking about, number one, obstruction, and then number two, his retention of items that he should not have had. What was in those documents and his possession, those two things didn't necessarily need to be at this level in order for Jack Smith to move forward with a prosecution. But when you look at the 7 counts and what's actually in the indictment, those are what they are because of what the contents are and because of what Jack Smith's office believes he intended to do with these things. That's why you have the additional counts on this indictment that you have. So it's not just a question of him attempting to obstruct a federal investigation in terms of obtaining these documents and getting them back. It's the actual content. And then, of course, as we are seeing over and over again with these now very colored, very detailed pictures, where they were housed, who had access to them, and the fact that he was entirely cavalier with our nation's most important secrets.
And Frank Figliuzzi, from a national security standpoint, what do you see when you see these boxes and how they were stored?
You know, it's what's not in the indictment that really we need to think about, which is that historically, foreign intelligence services have always attempted to penetrate a second home or summer residence or winter residence of a president. And this would be no exception. Mar-a-Lago was a huge target, a huge bullseye for foreign intel services. And there have been some public reports, of course, of Chinese nationals trying to penetrate, getting in, people associated with Russian or other Eastern Bloc countries. But I'm here to tell you that it was a giant and porous target. And I'm also here to tell you that the Secret Service was not responsible for some of the areas cited in this indictment in terms of protecting. The Secret Service doesn't protect boxes, and nor do they cover the domain, the area in which the protectee is not living and working in. They just protect him. So the likelihood that a foreign service had access or attempted to get access to these places and these papers is quite high.
And we now, and almost simultaneously, Andrew and I were honing in on the same part of this indictment. It's on page 21. So Trump Attorney 1 and Trump Attorney 2 tell Donald Trump that they need to search those documents, that they need to be responsible for the subpoena. So they make the following statements memorialized by Trump Attorney 1. I don't want anybody looking. I don't want anybody looking through my boxes. I really don't. I don't want you looking through my boxes.
And that's supposed to be, that is a recording of what they say Donald Trump said in response to how should they deal with the subpoena, calling for documents. And they record, I don't want anyone looking for it. That's
and
what
then
Trump
he asks,
says.
well, what happens if we just don't respond at all or don't play ball with them? Wouldn't it be better if we just told them we don't have anything here? Isn't it better if there are no documents?
So that is devastating, and you are going to have 2 attorneys saying that.
Can the defense say it's hearsay?
No, that is what's called an admission. That is definitely, that is a witness who's going to say, I heard Donald Trump say that. That is not hearsay. That is classic, an admission that's coming into evidence. And there's going to be contemporaneous notes of this. So, I mean, this is really strong. I find the next paragraph fascinating because Donald Trump tells a story that's clearly a reference to Hillary Clinton and the 30,000 emails and says, essentially, this is, I don't understand why you're not getting rid of this for me, and says, you know, I'm looking at the attorney for Hillary Clinton, and that attorney did a really good job because he got rid of those emails and said they were personal and she never got into trouble. So why can't you do the same for me? That is the import of basically saying to the attorney, can't you do this for me?
And to take a step back, Chris is drawing our attention to this seemingly damning memorialized material, not from a Trump foe, not from a random uninformed person, but for a Trump loyalist and retained attorney at the time. That's why it's so damning. We only learned that Mr. Corcoran was making these tapes, these voice notes last weekend in the Times report. We only learned about this Florida grand jury piece within a recent period. And so, Andrew, I'm hard pressed. I want to go out on a limb here. It's breaking coverage, so I'm thinking as I go, but I'm hard pressed to think of any of the many cases involving Donald Trump, civil or criminal, now with 2 indictments, that have inside damning witnesses like this. You were famously involved in the Mueller probe. You certainly had some very interesting material. But this is recent. This is hot off the presses, as we would say, that someone who recently worked for Donald Trump, who was in the room where it happened, is part of what is now a charged conspiracy where, if they get him on the stand, they would expect Trump attorney, the Trump attorney here, Trump attorney 1, to say, I memorialized it because I was worried it was criminal. That's why I started making tapes. And yes, he was asking us to commit crimes. These are now charged crimes today.
Absolutely. This is why it was such a big deal that they were able to pierce the attorney-client privilege.
So we have some more photos. We've got a couple more. We're loading them into the television right now, but I do have one on my phone. I'm not sure if you guys can zoom in enough to see it, but it is a photo of spilled documents in the storage room. And the description of the photo, I'll give you here. This is a courtesy of Mike Koznar, who's on our reporting team. On December 7th, 2021, NADA found several of Trump's boxes fallen and their contents spilled onto the floor of the storage room, including a document marked secret RAL 14 to USA FVEY, which I'm sure Andrea can translate. It denoted that the information in the document was releasable only to the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance, consisting of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and the United States. NADA texted Trump employee number 2. I opened the door and found this. NADA also attached 2 photographs he took of the spill. Here, we have them up on the screen now. Trump employee number 2 replied, oh no, and I'm sorry, POTUS had my phone. One of the photographs, which is interesting, we can get into that. One of the photographs NADA texted to Trump employee 2 is depicted below with the visible classified information redacted. Trump's unlawful retention of this document is charged in count 8 of the indictment. We can pull that up. The other photo, description of photo number 6, boxes stacked against the wall. We'll show this to you as well. Here it is. On November 12th, 2021, Trump employee 2 provided Trump a photograph of his boxes in the storage room by taping it to one of the boxes that Trump employee 2 had placed in Trump's residence. Trump employee 2 provided Trump the photograph so that Trump 18 could see how many of his boxes were stored in the storage room. The photograph shown depicted a wall of the storage room against which dozens of Trump's boxes were stacked. So that's that photo as well. Now, if we go to count 8 of the indictment.
Yeah, so that's just a timeline. And on January 17th, it says that it's a year, right, after Trump leaves office. And by then, the National Archives was begging, repeatedly saying, we need these documents. He gave them 15 documents containing 15 boxes containing 197 documents. On June 3rd, Trump's attorneys turned over 38 more documents. Then on August 8th, more than half a year later, pursuant to a court-authorized search warrant, the FBI recovered from Trump's office and his storage room at the Mar-a-Lago Club 102 more documents with classification markings. So from the year after he left office, when they turned over 15 boxes and 197 documents, they subsequently found on June 3rd 38 more, and on August 8th, under a court-authorized search warrant.
So if we go back
102
to
more.
the spilled photo, and we talk about what was redacted and the classified document in there, the one that was supposed to only be seen by Five Eyes, our closest allies, you can see above the photo of Donald Trump at a gaggle, which is what we call reporters standing around him. There's one big black line across that document. So that presumably is the document that fell out of that box that is described in the indictment and included here. I do think that I want to go back to Robert Ray, because Robert, you're talking about how this is the prosecution's, it's not the wish list, but it is the prosecution's argument here. It is their best argument for why they are charging Donald Trump. And again, multiple counts, 37 counts alone for Donald Trump. Robert, as you're going through this, from your reading as a lawyer, as a former federal prosecutor, do you not read this as potentially very bad for Donald Trump, or do you see this dispassionately?
I don't really know how to answer that. It's a prosecution. It's serious. If he's convicted,
I know, but some prosecutions,
if he's convicted,
differ.
he can go to jail. Okay, I have a security clearance. It's secret. It's not top secret.
Okay, sorry. I'm just okay. First of all, my head's spinning. Secondly, I printed out the whole thing. You want your head to explode? Counts 1 through 31, number of pages. They relate to specific documents, and it gives a summary of what the different documents are. There are 3 listed here, and roughly what they are. You start reading through this thing. Number 4, top secret special handling document concerning White House intelligence briefing related to foreign countries, including military activities and planning of foreign countries. Number 5, top secret, no foreign, which means no foreigner should see this. Document dated June 2020 concerning nuclear capabilities of a foreign country. Number 6, top secret special handling document concerning White House intelligence briefing related to various countries. Concerning a communications with the leader of a foreign country, concerning military capabilities of a foreign country, concerning military attacks by a foreign country, military capabilities of a foreign country, concerning military contingency planning of the United States, concerning projected regional military capabilities of a foreign country and the United States. Same for the next one. Concerning military operations of a foreign country and potential effects of on U.S. interests. Concerning policies in a foreign country. These aren't trophies. This is saleable stuff.
And it's all interspersed in boxes of news clippings and pictures of himself.
Well, I mean, Hal Sparks has been saying that basically the way he probably got them out of the White House as easily
it in papers, yeah,
is putting them like in the backs of the frames with all of his memorabilia. Concerning military capabilities of a foreign country, concerning military operations against the United States foes and others, concerning nuclear weaponry of the United States, concerning timeline and details of attack in a foreign country, concerning military capabilities of foreign countries. It's just military. And the handwritten annotation in black marker is just military activity, foreign countries, and the U.S. Military activity, foreign countries. White House intelligence briefing related to various foreign countries.
I just want to point out something we had mentioned, Andrew had mentioned.
31 documents. 31 documents. That's not memorabilia.
Can you drop the link for that PDF in chat?
Sure.
Likely the Mar-a-Lago maintenance worker, Carlos de Oliveira, And as Katie certainly was alluding to, Trump family member likely refers, when they refer to ma'am and the plane to Bedminster, Melania Trump. Just one other point for the table. For those of us who cover politics, as well as the legal ramifications, so we have our experts. We have seen what the polling was after the indictment of Donald Trump in the Albert Bragg case. This is a real test of what the reaction is going to be politically to this incredibly detailed and legally, our experts are saying, devastating. Ken Delaney and Frank Figluzzi and I, who've covered national security for years, say devastating, devastating facts.
It's going to be a test of the Republican Party because the numbers with
point.
his base have not moved.
But let me just make a point here that I just wanted to wrap up. This is a test of people on the armed services and intelligence committees in both houses, because the support that he has had on Capitol Hill from the Republicans writ large. I want to hear Lindsey Graham. I want to hear what the others what the speaker says. He knows intelligence. He's shown recently he can be an institutionalist on the debt ceiling debate. I want to see how everyone reacts. Is it going to be knee-jerk that this is the big bad FBI and the Department of Justice inaccurately? But is it going to be the same knee-jerk reaction, or are we going to have a real national conversation about this?
I think getting them on the record on that is going to be very interesting. And Lindsey Graham very recently was upset about the debt deal because he doesn't feel comfortable with the money that's given to defense. The money
He
that's
drew a
allotted
line on Vladimir
for defense.
Putin with Donald
And he's
Trump.
drawn a line on Vladimir Putin. Yes, I think one of the things.
Okay, sorry, I just made that quiet for a minute because I think you've hit the nail on the head in the chat. Where was it? I just saw it.
In Florida, and maybe that's the best thing right now for DOJ, for the country to say, hey, listen, we're trying this case
Hang
in
on.
a place that is friendly to Donald Trump, and if a place that he lives in a
Sorry, I'm having a
red state
technical
where
difficulty here.
is more likely to be in favor of Donald Trump, maybe even be a voter of Donald Trump. And if we can try this case and win it in front of them, this should take the wind out of Donald Trump's argument that it's just a political prosecution done by people who hate him in blue states.
But will this be delayed so long that it doesn't happen?
Well,
before
that's
the
another
election?
question.
Something that's similar to when we saw the January 6th committee,
Oh my
and one of the
God,
points
he
that were
goes
made is that they
on
made
at
the case
3
through
Eastern,
Republican
so that's
witnesses.
2 Central,
One of
that's
the things
another
that's striking
18
here, to your point about who the sort of anonymous people are, attorneys 1, 2, and 3 are attorneys for Donald Trump. Employees 1 and 2 and their contemporaneous text messages to each other are the evidence. In other words, this is not made up by the FBI. These are contemporaneous Trump employees and attorneys where the information's coming from them. The photographs are coming not from the FBI during a search where Donald Trump says, oh, these are staged.
Okay, sorry, I was having some difficulties. The question is, what was he doing with them? You can't, I'm sorry, this is not memorabilia. This is not. Nuh-uh. Mm-mm. No.
Not at all.
Nope.
Coming from insiders, to Ari's point, not from FBI.
What was he doing with it?
Sorry,
This is
Pam.
from people who were contemporaneously.
I agree with whomever said earlier. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. Oh yeah, I'm here for the press conference. I know Sarah can stay, but I definitely am going to be here for the press conference. I wouldn't miss it for anything.
Willful retention of national defense information, conspiracy to obstruct justice, withholding
Stuff that would get a prosecutor all up in your business. That's what Trump's was going to do with them.
false statements and representations. Nada has been charged with conspiracy to obstruct
Queen of Pentacles, 5 of Pentacles, 8 of Swords.
document in a federal investigation scheme to conceal false statements and representations. This is not a brief, a small, a tightly focused, if you will.
Mainly what I'm getting is he's toast. I mean, I'm just getting, most of these cards are just, I mean, he had the things, but mostly what I'm getting is
Given the amount of time that was taken with
strip. He's going to be fined out the wazoo. He's going to be confined. Wheel of Fortune, aggressive law enforcement. Card for the reading is the King of Swords, who's the prosecutor.
31 counts for the Espionage Act alone.
What did he want it for?
As a country, we now have to deal with this. And if you're someone who hates Donald Trump and says that it's not going to be a fair outcome.
Michelle, the quilter saying, if he sold the info, how would we know? Because there should be some benefit there, but his finance, his Grift Co. is 500 LLCs. Some of those LLCs are just for bank accounts.
Yeah, they're shells.
How can you have I own an LLC. Book Art Media is an LLC. You know how many LLCs I own? One.
How to structure the charges and what to put in the document, and you will see
He wanted to make money.
Documents that are the basis for those espionage act charges.
That's what he wanted. And he's about to get his rear end handed to him.
Information about intelligence briefings of foreign countries, military capabilities of foreign countries, nuclear capabilities of foreign countries.
Yeah.
All of that is incredibly important, and you can imagine that if you are a foreign country that shares information with the United States, you might be a little less willing to do that going forward, knowing that Donald Trump could be president again and is so incredibly reckless with this information. But I imagine when prosecutors are sitting there, they're thinking about, one, we want to make sure we are sharing with a jury the full scope and seriousness of the kinds of documents that Donald Trump was retaining outside of a SCIF and proper handling. At the same time, if there is something that is so explosive that it can just never see the light of day, then I think they would be reluctant to include that. So it may be that as bad as this list of 31 looks, it may very well be that there were certain documents that the intelligence community told prosecutors, no matter what happens, you can't use these certain documents in the indictment. You know, there are 105
that's
total
just a
documents
guaranteed.
they could have chosen from. They chose these 31, and they
there's more we'll never know about
on the table that they did not include for various reasons.
Count number 7 of a document related or dated on October 21st, 2018, concerning communications with a leader of a foreign country. On that same day, it was reported that Donald Trump
Did we freeze? Did we freeze?
Vladimir Putin.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I lost
Let
internet
me
for a
just also
second.
point out,
No, it was on that
here's
same
a
day. It was reported that Donald Trump met with who?
Social post attacking Jack Smith with a picture of Jack Smith, and he says, "This is the man who caused the lowest learner catastrophe with the IRS." He goes after it. There are a lot of unsubstantiated allegations here, so I'm not going to read this. But he
There was
refers to him as a
nuclear.
Trump hater. He goes
The
after
U.S. pulled out
Jack
of some kind of
Smith's
nuclear.
wife,
Putin. He met that day with
him a
Putin.
deranged
That's
psycho,
lovely.
and a picture of Jack Smith. So the attacks have just begun. Andrew Weissman,
Well,
if you were
no,
his
I'm-
defense lawyer,
so
what would you say?
Well, you of course want him to stop. I mean, this is exactly what happened in Manhattan, where there was the infamous picture of him with a bat and Alvin Bragg attacks on the judge and their families.
And we're showing you right now the room where Jack Smith is going to be speaking. We want to reemphasize it is not the Department of Justice. He does not have, an official relationship with them on this case.
Can we ask Robert Ray that question? Because
Let me just let Andrew finish the point that I just interrupted.
So, look, the attack is something that Jack Smith knows very well by taking his position that that's going to come, and it's really done. It's not going to in any way deter anybody who is serving in the special counsel.
No, but millions and millions of people are reading this.
Absolutely.
I mean, Jack Smith came from The Hague for this assignment. He's been pursuing war crime criminals.
Absolutely. I mean, this is shocking behavior. Once again, we've had 2 judges, a state judge and a federal judge, who have actually had to take steps because the former president of the United States is engaging in conduct that could threaten the lives of judges, jurors, witnesses, and prosecutors and agents. I mean, it's completely beyond the pale. There are ramifications in terms of now he is going to be overseen by not just a state judge, but by a federal judge.
Becca,
When
yes.
this happened,
Good
with
point.
Roger Stone,
Becca's saying, don't forget, it was reported weeks ago, Jack Smith is looking into Trump org financials. They already suspect he sold some. They just need the evidence.
Yeah.
Let me pull some cards on that.
But this is really what happens when you have somebody who thinks that the rule of law and rules in general don't apply to him and is lashing out.
Let's ask that statement of Robert. What do you do in that scenario?
I'm sorry, somebody was speaking in my ear. I just wanted to say.
The question of what do you do? Well, I want to hear what you have to say otherwise, but I do want to hear an answer to what do you do when your client, when we talked about this before, personally goes after the prosecutor in very ugly terms.
Well, the question is whether your client is a current presidential candidate for office in a political environment in which a prosecution is being brought by the Department of Justice of your political opponent. And, I had to laugh when Andrea Mitchell said this is a prosecution separate from the Justice Department. And I'm looking at a news conference that is going to take place in the next few minutes, in which at the podium is the seal of the United States Department of Justice. So, that rings hollow. He's a special counsel. This prosecution was authorized by Merrick Garland. They can try to hide behind the fact that it's the special counsel. The special counsel made the prosecutorial decision, but ultimately this is a prosecution that is authorized by the Attorney General of the United States, who is Joe Biden's appointee in an election cycle. Okay, and then finally, Katie, you are onto something.
Robert Ray.
Yeah, Katie, you are onto something.
It was, excuse me, sir.
Yes.
When it was authorized, it was not an election cycle. She was not a candidate. And the fact is,
He's a candidate right now.
he's a candidate right now.
Right, and the
And it needs a
prosecution was
special
authorized as of Monday, when they gave the defense lawyers the last clear chance to avoid an indictment. So the prosecution was brought while former President Donald Trump is a candidate for the office of President of the United States.
Mr. Ray, do you have any evidence that Merrick Garland or Joe Biden specifically authorized this indictment?
No, the president has said that he did not have any role to play with regard to the prosecution, and I take him at his word. I wasn't suggesting otherwise. The special counsel.
Yes, you were. You just did.
The special
authorized this indictment.
The special counsel regulations require that the attorney general be notified of a substantial step with regard to a special counsel investigation, which includes asking.
Yeah, I'm not liking this guy.
Indictment. Merrick Garland was notified by Jack Smith if the regulations were followed.
Okay, he was notified.
This prosecution would proceed.
As far as
and Merrick Garland
Jack
was
Smith
given
looking at
the
Trump or
opportunity
Grift
to
co-finances,
either
what I
object
get
or to
is
acquiesce and let it fly.
he
At
can look,
acquiesced
but
and let it fly, which
what
meant that he was
the charges that
notified
are already
as he
here
would be. And that means that the attorney general
might be the only that we're seeing today might be the only public charges
Ray,
he
thank you very
brings,
much. That is a preview of
because
some of the arguments we
the
are going to continue to
CIA
hear now that the American public
may be like,
had a chance to take a look
okay,
at
we
this
need to know he sold
49-page
something
document.
that
And
everybody
just
in
to
the universe
left of
does
me,
not
you're
need to
seeing
know.
The podium where special counsel Jack Smith will go. We're waiting to hear what he has to say. How much will he reveal? Will he have more information even than that's enclosed in this voluminous document? Frank Figliuzzi, Barbara McQuaid, and Ken Delanian are all joining me right now. Barbara, we haven't said this, I think, maybe since the beginning of the hour about the stakes here, the stakes for the criminal justice system. Obviously, the stakes for the justice system, the stakes for the prosecutors here, the stakes, obviously, for Donald Trump.
I'm exhausted.
It is a momentous, historic time. What does Jack Smith
This is
need
crazy.
to do and say
This
now
is
when he comes to that
crazy.
podium, perhaps in less than 10 minutes?
I think his goal is going to be to assure the American public that this case is based on evidence and not on politics. I think one of the things that Donald Trump has done so disastrously to our country is to frame everything in terms of politics, everything in terms of team red or team blue, and that's what it's all about. And instead, I think what Jack Smith needs to rise above is that concept that
Why are we frozen again?
everything's a political decision, that this is a case based on evidence,
Okay.
that not only are there charges of the Espionage Act, but these charges relating to obstruction of justice, which, sometimes are dismissed by Trump and his supporters as, quote, mere process crimes. These are incredibly important crimes because they go to the very integrity of the legal system.
But in this highly politicized world, Frank Figliuzzi, is there really another trial going on here? And I know we talk about the court of public opinion, but Jack Smith is making a case that already we know a good bit of the voting public, a good bit of Americans don't believe, won't believe, will never believe. So how does he do that? How does he convince people that this is about the justice system? This is about no one being above the law, and this is not about politics?
Jack Smith needs to be the person he's always been in his career, and he'll continue to be. What we're going to see today in this press conference is the rule of law personified in a career prosecutor standing in front of the American people saying, here's the job that
someone
our
just
team did.
Veronica Johannes said, who has 1,000 boxes?
You don't have to agree with it, but it's what law and order looks like. And if you don't like that, I'm not going to apologize for that. So he's not speaking to the
I don't have 1,000, but
MAGA movement,
I've got
who,
a
as
lot.
you say, will never buy into this because they're in an echo chamber, a rabbit hole. But rather, he's speaking to America, and really the world is watching absolutely today. And he's telling them writ large, this is how it's supposed to work. This is how I did my job.
And as someone who has covered national security for such a very long time, Ken Delanian, let me get your final thoughts about the enormity, frankly, of what the prosecution team, what Jack Smith
Holy
is
cow,
facing,
yes,
but also
Ricky.
what you may know from
Heck,
conversations you've had where you
MSNBC
are
saved
there
some
in
cake for
Florida
Willis down
about
in
how
Georgia.
they plan to approach
That's
this
coming
case.
in July, August.
Look, this is a significant moment in American history. Just last week, an Air Force colonel was sentenced to 3 years in prison on a set of facts, a classified documents case much less strong than this devastating indictment. But Donald Trump is presumed innocent. He's going to have his day in court, possibly in this courthouse behind me, although it's up in the air. And there's a lot of preparations being made among the security
He's
agencies.
legally presumed innocent.
For that process to unfold.
The court of public opinion, well,
Almost unimaginable spectacle of the former president of the United States turning himself into a federal building. And the same government that he used to run and supervise will be fingerprinting him, taking his mugshot, and seizing his passport, Chris.
Which is exactly.
Let me ask you about that, Barbara McQuaid, because
have
that was not
nothing
something
else to
that
do with
we
this.
saw happen when he was in a Manhattan courtroom. But what are we looking at in terms of what will happen on Tuesday?
Well, I imagine he'll be processed mostly like most defendants, but probably not exactly like every defendant. When someone is allowed to turn themselves in, as they often are in a nonviolent case, where there's
Katie,
not a
that's
fear of
hysterical.
danger to the community or risk of flight, a person is actually put into custody. They are booked, they are fingerprinted, sometimes a DNA swab is taken, and then they are brought into the courtroom. I would imagine, as we saw in the New York case, that a Secret Service agent will accompany Donald Trump throughout that entire process. It may also be the case that
I need
they're
to put
able
more
get a
paper in
waiver
my printer.
for a mugshot in light of the fact that everybody knows what Donald Trump looks like, and that it would be very difficult for him to evade detection simply because people don't have access to that photo. So I think he may get some special treatment only because he is a lifelong protectee of the Secret Service. But after he is processed, he will then go to court for his arraignment. Typically what happens there is a defendant gets a copy of the indictment, they get told of the potential penalties, and an opportunity to have it read if they choose.
Oh my gosh,
I wanna
Tam.
thank all my
Can you
guests
imagine if
throughout the day,
Obama did
including
this?
Frank and Barbara and Ken, and of course my colleagues Andrea Mitchell and Katie Tour.
They'd burn his
as
house
we
down.
got this 49-page indictment unsealed, and we wait for Jack Smith to take to the podium. I now turn it over to my good friend and colleague, Nicole Wallace. Nicole.
A Herculean effort, reading while
Yay,
talking on live TV. I'm in
Nicole.
awe of all of you. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Continuing our special coverage here on MSNBC. I'm Nicole Wallace. We are following the breaking news, this extraordinary indictment of the 45th president, Donald J. Trump. In a matter of moments, Special Counsel Jack Smith will deliver a statement to the country, frankly, to the world, on camera for the very first time. It's an historic moment. Since he was appointed in November, we haven't heard him speak or seen him speak from before for a podium as he's gone about what turns out to be an extraordinarily detailed investigation in hermetic silence. We'll bring you his statement live the moment it begins. Again, that's set to start any moment now. Of course, the reason for this statement, those 7 criminal charges against Donald J. Trump today, having to do with the alleged mishandling of classified documents in his post-presidency at his Mar-a-Lago and Bedminster properties. A short time ago, that indictment was officially unsealed. You've watched my colleagues read through it and make sense of it with the expert analysis of Andrew Weissman and Ari Melber and others. It lists 38 counts total. 31 of them have to do with Trump's willful retention of national defense information. That is the Espionage Act, and another count of false statements. Then there are a number of charges that include both Donald Trump and his former valet, Walt Nauta. There are 5. 1 count of conspiracy to obstruct justice, 1 count of withholding a document or record, 1 count of corruptly concealing a document or record, 1 count of concealing a document in a federal investigation, and 1 count of a scheme to conceal. The final of the 38 counts is just one that has been charged to Walt Nauta, 1 for false statements. Both defendants have been summoned to appear on Tuesday. Joining us here for our continuing special coverage, my colleagues Rachel Maddow and Joy Reid. Also with us in studio, MSNBC chief legal correspondent Ari Melber,
Rachel's here too.
legal analyst Andrew Weissman, and my friend and colleague MSNBC anchor Katie Tur. Rachel, we're about to hear from Jack Smith himself, so if I have to interrupt you abruptly, I apologize in advance. Your thoughts right now.
Reading the indictment, Nicole, I was struck by the simplicity of it structurally. This is not a case where we need to wait for somebody to flip, where there's no Alan Weisselberg character out here who we need to find out how much they're going to tell prosecutors. There's no opaque question of intent that we need to wait to see if prosecutors have some access to. There's no, contingent second crime that elevates these things to a more serious thing. All things that we've seen in other serious cases involving Trump and his business. In this case, this is straightforward. What they're laying out, it's an accusation. It is not a conviction, but what they're accusing him of is that he was not allowed to have this stuff. He knew it, and he had the stuff anyway. And that's it. And so I think it's a readable indictment, which is a service to the American people, particularly the first half of it. You could read out loud and everybody would get it. Second half of it is more complicated, but the still basic, very basic idea here is very understandable. I think it's hard to contest as some sort of witch hunt. You're not allowed to have classified documents. You shouldn't have them. Once you find out that you do have them, you should hand them over. So we'll see what Jack Smith has to say. The former president already attacking him in personal terms is a very bad sign in terms of how he's going to handle this. And we can hope that his allies and that other Republicans don't join him in attacking prosecutors and attacking the rule of law and attacking the justice system, and instead focus on the defense of the man here.
It's so interesting, Ari, that Rachel points to the simplicity. I'm always bracing for needing to use all my lifelines to call people like you or Andrew Weissman when a document like this is made public. And again, I'm going to apologize to you the same way I did to Rachel. If Jack Smith takes that podium, we're all going to zip up and listen. But it is clear that he pierced something that was always the challenge for Robert Mueller before him, and that was the president's intent. It was an intent to take these things. It was his intent to share them with people, and he did it with the knowledge that it was not allowed.
Absolutely. I mean, to echo Rachel's incisive point, it helps when it's clear. OJ famously had the book, If I Did It. For Donald Trump, this case boils down to, I did it. And he said as much in public to Sean Hannity and others who tried to wave him off. As Rachel says, when you have that combined with the evidence, and then the inside job. We had all the questions on the day of January 6th, which still remains under investigation by the special counsel about inside jobs. Well, this was an inside job with inside witnesses. Trump, as a mob boss style, blatantly calls them rats sometimes, right? No president had ever spoken like that. But they're not rats. Lawyer one, who we've clearly identified as we believe to be Corcoran, although to be clear, the DOJ isn't naming him yet, made notes because he saw Trump was pushing him into a crime he didn't want to help commit. And now the DOJ says several crimes were committed, that what he couldn't get lawyer one to do, he got other people to do. And so it is bad news. I have never seen anything hit Donald Trump this hard, this broad, with this much inside evidence from people who are saying, I was there, he did it, it was recent, and I'll tell you about it.
So much of what is in here were things that any of us that covered Trump's presidency knew were happening, that he took classified documents to the residence. And there's a vast body of contemporaneous journalism that corroborates that. What's amazing is that Jack Smith clearly pierced the chain of custody from the classified material that no one that worked for Trump in a national security or intelligence capacity ever denied took place into the boxes. Trump's role in packing them, Trump's role in moving them, and Trump's role in moving them from room to room at Mar-a-Lago.
And personally looking through them. But to pick up on Ari's point, when you're going to attack this, you have to be able to take on the fact that the evidence that is outlined here is not coming from the FBI. These are attorneys 1, 2, and 3. Those are Trump's attorneys. He chose them.
It's like a Fox News lineup, right? I mean, they were his public and private attorneys.
These are people who were the other day on TV defending him. These are his attorneys with contemporaneous notes. These are employees 1 and 2 with text messages to each other talking about how Donald Trump was personally reviewing things. And these are messages at the time. So again, this is not the FBI planting evidence. This isn't the FBI interviewing people later. This is contemporaneous material. There are references to tape recordings, text messages, photographs, not photographs taken by the FBI during the search, photographs taken by employees 1 and 2.
And shown to Trump.
Exactly. So this is one where...
Okay, I love that, Rhonda Cox. Do those boxes have tiny, tiny little fingerprints?
As Andrea Mitchell was saying, she wants to hear from people in Congress who actually care about national security. What are you going to do with this? I mean, this is, you can't, what you're going to say, all these lawyers and all these employees just suddenly decided to be anti-Trump, even though they're their people. So this is a real problem for sort of, I would say, sort of the honest Republicans who want to really react to this in good faith.
Here comes Special Counsel Jack Smith. We're going to pipe down and let everyone listen to him on this historic day.
Good afternoon. Today, an indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with felony violations of our national security laws, as well as participating in a conspiracy to obstruct justice. This indictment was voted by a grand jury of citizens in the Southern District of Florida, and I invite everyone to read it in full to understand the scope and the gravity of the crimes charged. The men and women of the United States intelligence community and our armed forces dedicate their lives to protecting our nation and its people. Our laws that protect national defense information are critical for the safety and security of the United States, and they must be enforced. Violations of those laws put our country at risk. Adherence to the rule of law is a bedrock principle of the Department of Justice, and our nation's commitment to the rule of law sets an example for the world. We have one set of laws in this country, and they apply to everyone. Applying those laws, collecting facts, that's what determines the outcome of an investigation. Nothing more and nothing less. The prosecutors in my office are among the most talented and experienced in the Department of Justice. They have investigated this case hewing to the highest ethical standards, and they will continue to do so as this case proceeds. It's very important for me to note that the defendants in this case must be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. To that end, my office will seek a speedy trial in this matter, consistent with the public interest and the rights of the accused. We very much look forward to presenting our case to a jury of citizens in the Southern District of Florida. In conclusion, I would like to thank the dedicated public servants of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, with whom my office is conducting this investigation and who work tirelessly every day upholding the rule of law in our country. I'm deeply proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with them. Thank you very much.
Why Florida, sir? Why did you decide to bring the case in Florida?
Anyone that has watched Jack Smith is unsurprised that he was as brief as he was, but there is not an absence of drama here, Andrew Weissman. Inviting everyone to read the document in full, making clear that the men and women behind the classified information that was compromised are American patriots who risked their lives to protect U.S. national security, and that is what is at stake. Important that he called out his partners in this investigation, the men and women of the FBI, and called for a speedy trial, both in the public interest and the right of the accused.
And I would add, and that there are one set of laws in this country. But this was in terms of a model, and I view this as a sort of Merrick Garland, Robert Mueller model, not a sort of Archibald Cox model, if you're sort of, just to date myself, meaning this is definitely sort of a less is more. I'm hitting
Just the facts, ma'am.
Key points that I want to make. You singled them out that he wanted to hit, but he wasn't going to belabor it. This was definitely, read the indictment, and then we're going to be heard in court. The one thing I would have liked to hear, if I were doing this, and it's hard.
Jack Smith, from all accounts, is a really good guy, and he's married. He's very supportive of his wife, who is a documentary maker, a very liberal documentary maker. And they have a daughter whom, from every picture you can find or see, he absolutely adores his daughter.
It would have been completely antithetical to what.
So he's a good man.
That's something that I think lots of people are going to need to sort of fill in because it's clear that a different calculus was made.
I need to decompress. I can't.
We're going to try a case in court.
Yeah,
Donald Trump is going to do what Donald Trump does.
Wild.
And we're going to do what we do and count on.
And I've been on for 2 hours, or almost 2 hours. So
that they take
I couldn't do another reading right now to save my life.
I mean, America just
So
met Jack Smith.
Right.
And it was a very brief.
Gwen, if you scroll up, the link is in the chat.
Rolls. It was crisp. It was about the facts in the four corners.
For the PDF.
Oh, the PDF. Oh, thank you, Marie. Thank you. All right, and I've put the link in the chat again for the PDF. How are you doing?
I was looking up on AO3 just on the RPFs are real person fics, and that's when people write fanfics based on real people. So I was looking up the RPFs to see how many Jack Smith fics there are, because I guarantee you after that press conference, it's going to be like bing, 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 bing. And so.
And I have to say, Lolabelle, I agree that I was getting Scorpio rising as well, but we don't know. Glenn, thank you so much. Thank you.
He's like he kind of gives off that, like if he'd have been like, I'm Batman at the end, like I wouldn't have been surprised. Like he gives off that whole,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lolabelle, June 5th, 69. Ah. I hadn't heard that, but I'm going to make a note. June 5th. 69. I will have a look. Jack Smith's birthday. All right. Thank you.
Lisa, almost. Iron Man was definitely Republican, but Batman was Democrat.
Yes. What was that website? What was the website of the fanfics?
Oh, it's Archive of Our Own. So we call it AO3 for short. But if it's archiveofourown.com.
All right, so archiveofourown.com.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Hang on 1 second.
is something that wants to destroy federal law enforcement in this country. And the attacks on the FBI, the reaction to the Durham report, the way they tried to use the entire Russia investigation as some sort of boomerang effect thing that was going to take out the FBI, take out federal law enforcement, essentially neuter the ability of that
I miss
part of our
Rachel.
law enforcement apparatus to get things done. I mean, he's saying, no, the FBI is honorable. They're part of this. I stand by them and I thank them. Calling them honorable public servants and letting that be the last thing he says before he walks away, I think shows that he recognizes that those attacks on the FBI are an attack on something very fundamental about our constitutional order.
It's such an important point. He also makes.
All right, so that is going to do it for this. I'm going to go lie on the floor. At 3 o'clock, in 45 minutes, we're starting Creative Sprints over on the Creative Sprints channel. I may be on the floor for that. I'll just bring my phone with me.
Right.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, we'll go. We'll get some rest. We'll do some creative work, and then I'll be right back here tomorrow. And Sarah, thank you so much for coming on and helping. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know what I did other than provide moral support and go, oh, in the appropriate places, but I'm here for it.
No, you are awesome. And you also are hysterical. So thank you, Becca. Thank you. And thank you again for coming on last night. All right, that's going to do it. Have a great rest of your day. You are not alone. We are in this together. And holy buckets, there are good days ahead. Ooh, we haven't even touched Georgia yet. We haven't even touched Georgia yet. Yeah. All right. Take care, everybody.